Hey, everybody, welcome to another one of these amazing conversations. You know, I walk into this room every day, sometimes 10 times a day, because that's how many strangers are signing up for these conversations. It blew my mind how much people want to just have this opportunity. And then I really thought about it for a minute. Why wouldn't we want to be in a room where we're loved and accepted, where we're listened to and heard, where we're acknowledged and validated for what we're saying? In the world today, it seems like that doesn't happen as often as it could. So, in our own special way, this is our secret way of trying to infuse that energy into the world we live in. I have to mention the show is sponsored by the Mosaic. The Mosaic is the story of a boy who lost his parents 2 years apart on the same day. And when he asked the adults where his parents were, they told him they were in a place called heaven. So that boy set out in search of the place called heaven. And the people he met along the way were not the people he thought he was going to meet. He didn't meet the clergy and the medicine women and the healers and the shamans and the priestesses. He met common ordinary people. He met the trash man and the road worker and the street artist and the blind woman and the homeless guy. And in the back of his mind, he was thinking, what am I meeting these people for? It doesn't seem like they're going to teach me where heaven is. But then he thought, I'm here with them. I don't have any place else to go. Why don't I just listen to them tell me their stories? And every single time when he listened to people tell him their stories, he realized the person he had first come up to was not at all the person that they are. He realized that they didn't change, that he changed, that his preconceived notion of what they were from the cover of the book that he was looking at was totally different than who they were once he opened the book up. And in that moment, he said to himself, if I can't see people the way they are, I wonder if I can see anything the way it is. And he wondered, what in the world do I see the way it is? And I wonder what would happen if I slid myself out of the way and allowed the world to show me the world as it is rather than the world that I see. And at that moment, he looked to his right and he saw a monk unzipping the sky and inviting him to walk into a parallel reality where he met the wise one who was the keeper of the Mosaic. That's the premise for the Mosaic. I want to thank them for sponsoring the show. But they themselves, the book itself asked me when I finished writing it to go out and do what Mo did. And I was all set to go on a trip around the world to do exactly that. And then Mr. COVID came to town and said, not on my watch, you're not going right now. So I decided to do it virtually. And brave people from every continent have joined this room. And I have no idea where the person I'm speaking to is from, what she does. I just know that she's this beautiful woman sitting here in this room with me. Her name is Lucie Lynch. And Lucie Lynch, I want to thank you for being in this room with me. I want to thank you for joining us in Conversations with a Stranger. How are you? And tell us who you are and what you do.
I'm very moved by the story, first of all, that you just shared by the Mosaic. Now I want to definitely read that. I'm doing very well. I'm in Honolulu, Hawaii, originally from Hamburg, Germany, and
Wow.
um, I've been here now for 10 years, and I love it. I think right now with what's going on in the world, for me, this is the best place to be. This is that piece of heaven, that I found for myself. Even with everything that is going on, and we are also not untouched by it here, but I feel like I found a little piece of that heaven actually in myself about probably 20 years ago when big things in my life shifted, and I carried that piece with me wherever I go.
That's so beautiful. And what I want listeners to already hear, if you can, I mean, I've been doing these now a long time, these conversations, but I want you to see, I don't know Lucie at all. I mean, we met 3 minutes ago in the green room. And for us already to share something so personal and so real, and for her to be so open already and vulnerable and sharing with us sort of a part of herself, I want you to just see how easy it is to connect to people. Because sometimes people say to me, "How do you connect with a stranger?" Well, how did we just do it? We didn't even do anything. I mean, Lucy's open, I'm open. There's an atmosphere of trust in here, and we just go in. So, Lucy, tell me how you're doing with all that's going on right now in the world.
So I've been, it's been now about, 5 months. It has been really, taking a little bit of a toll, but mainly, I have to say, mainly on the people around me, because when it all started, I had a moment of shock. I had a moment of resistance because my background is I'm a performer, singer, and songwriter, musician. All I do is outside in public. I mean, that was my
Wow.
whole life was in public. And every income, everything I made was from events, a soul sound alchemist. I put up these big events where people come to relax under the open sky, and I play singing bowls and I sing, and all of that was gone from one day to the other in that sense, in that world. And so there was a little bit of a disbelief. There was a shock, disbelief, and also a little bit of an anger and disappointment that was coming up, because I felt like there was a notion about this year that was like, finally it's happening. Like it felt almost like, oh, the golden age, the red carpet is rolled out, like all my projects that I've been working on so long and so hard, and I've given like everything. Everything had like a trajectory. It was like a momentum was built. And then it was like 16th of March. I was
Yes.
like, okay, this is interesting. And then I went pretty quickly into just asking, like, okay, what now? Show me. Show
Beautiful.
me what now? And I just moved basically, mainly the things online. And but to really come back to your question, how am I doing now? Because it's interesting. I had a very the months were just exciting. I created new business for myself. I created new adventures, and I put myself out there and reached thousands of people. Amazing. And yet there is a notion, and I only had it for about maybe the last couple days, where for the first time again in a long time, I kind of felt just some sadness come up, that a little bit of sadness coming up, that that there's so much fear around,
Yeah.
and that it is weighing so heavy on so many.
Yeah.
And sometimes for me, then I feel like I wish I could just lift that veil, lift that for people. And I feel then power. I have these moments then of powerlessness. I'm like, what else can I do that people feel less fear
Yeah.
and are less paralyzed by what's going on?
So, first of all, what a beautiful person you are already. I can tell. I love the way you look at the world. I love the way you pivot from the world. And there's so many things that I want to dive into. Um, but I think the place that I want to go first, even though it wasn't the place that I was going to go first earlier in what you were saying, is, and don't get me wrong, it's such a beautiful thing that you want to do, of you want to lift this sadness from people. But why is that so important for you to do?
I think because I had that for such a long time when I was in my younger years. I was really in a place of that. Like I was really probably in my teens. Like it started with about 13. Actually a little bit earlier, probably when I was around 10, it started that I drifted into this kind of like not understanding the world, having to kind of slowly grow up, and I had no idea what that even really means. And and I and I was, and this sounds a little weird, but it's maybe also because, for lack of a better word, like I felt like burdened with that kind of like sadness, like a little bit of a like,
Yeah.
oh. And once there was just a notion when in my 20s, there was a moment when something shifted, when I really started to connect to this place of like source, God. You can call it really whatever you want. But for me, it was this. Back then I read the books, Conversations with God from Neil Donald Walsh.
Yeah.
And something And I just last night, funny enough, I actually picked up the audiobook in German and I started re-listening because I remember that that touched me very, very deeply. And something was as if it was lifted, and then it felt like my life began with like 20, I don't know, with like 27, 28, because then I did what you were actually about to do. I left everything behind and I traveled for 5 years only with my backpack and my guitar, and I met people all over the world and shared exactly what you share. That's why I resonate so much with what you do. I had the privilege to be touched by the beauty and the grace, and it almost makes me cry, of all these beautiful people around the world that are so sweet and so generous, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I feel like I'm a messenger.
I so get that, and you can feel it in your voice. You can feel the passion that's there. You can feel, I mean, the way you tell the story, I know the moment that it shifted for you. I can feel it because your voice reflects that, and that's so beautiful. And if I can just dive a little bit deeper, and I'm just trying to understand, okay?
Yeah.
Did somebody lift you out of that sadness, or did just you started to discover things for yourself that then took you out?
I feel, you know what it was? I feel it's an in between, because I remember very vividly one very vivid moment that I remember. I was sitting in Hamburg, Germany, under a ginkgo tree, and I remember exactly the light. The ginkgo leaves were kind of like yellowish, and I went to that tree always when I was like kind of like scared or kind of,
Yeah,
in that sadness. And I sat under that tree, and I was just not really, I didn't really know where it's going from here. I knew already, the message already came through that I have to leave and that I have to go, that I have to be like Paolo Coelho, the alchemist. That's like, I knew that. But I was just so in that space of, but what if that is all just hocus pocus? What if
right.
that's not my true voice? What if it's just like, what if I'm just stupid?
Yeah,
And so I was sitting there, and I'm telling you, this guy walks by with his dog, and we never met again, right? And he walks by and he comes up to the tree and he looks at me and he says, you really just have to follow your heart. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel.
wow.
You just have to do it. And I get still chills. And he left. They kept walking, but somehow I like, for me it was like as if the sky opened and God talked to me. And I feel like for me that's what it is. There is these messengers for me. Like I had
Yeah,
many messengers in human form on my way that would literally show up like la,
yeah, yeah,
and I knew that it was just meant for me in that moment. And
yeah.
here I am, and I followed, I followed that, and I don't regret it at all.
Beautiful. And so, first of all, I want the listeners to just become a part of this conversation. I want you to ask yourself, where do you go in those moments where you feel a lack of comfort, to get comfort? Do you go to a tree? Do you go for a walk? Is there a person you sit with? Is there a place that you just sit alone? And how does your comfort come to you, and how does that arise? And do you allow yourself the moment to let a stranger walk by and say a sentence or two to you that then gives you the strength to carry on because you're that open to the world around you, which Lucie obviously was and is and still is in this moment. And I want to ask you also, and I don't want to belabor the point, but it's just so interesting to me because I find myself doing similar things. When I watch the way I've grown in whatever areas I've grown, I watch how much I want to help other people grow so that they can experience some of the things that I've been gifted with. And then I realize I've been gifted with them. It wasn't because somebody did something. Even if somebody did something, it was still like those people have done that for years, and suddenly I just got it. So it was a gift. And so I just want to ask, what would it feel like for you? And this is such a strange question because everything you're saying I so relate to. And yet there's little man inside my head speaking to me saying, what would it feel like to you if you could take the, I'm going to say the wrong word. I'm going to say burden, but it's not really a burden.
Yeah, yeah. I know that burden is not the right word. I know what
It's not the, but if you could take the obligation off of your back to just want to lift people up out of it and just let them go through what they're going through and love them through the process and let your music speak your language so that they find your music or they find you or they find whoever that stranger is who's going to walk by them and say, you really should follow your heart. Don't worry about it. It'll work out. What would that feel like if we could trust the universe enough to know that it's given us exactly what we need and we don't need to rush the process through because we're just sorry people feel sorry or feel bad? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
sort
yeah. And I think I thought about that myself as well. And I think it has already shifted because my whole, especially this year, there has been a notion of really me just doing it, just sharing all of my gifts from that point of, I'm just walking my talk now. I'm not anymore on a mission. Let's put it this way. I think like over the last 10 years, I was on a mission to save the world and to save people. I wanted people to feel good and to feel loved and to feel seen. And now something has shifted to, I always have to take it back. Do I see myself? Do I love myself? Can I give myself that comfort that I want to give comfort? And by doing that,
beautiful.
I actually automatically feel like now I'm giving it to others, which is funny. And it's not a burden anymore, you know?
Yeah.
But I think it's a process. It's a process. And I feel like I can see already the light there, but I'm still like a little bit in the tunnel with that, you know?
Yeah. I want the listeners to replay that because there's so much value in what Lucie just said. And I just, for me, one of the big transformations that's happened for me, which is really, I just want to lob this over the net to see what you feel about it, is when I went from the place where I had to help the world to grow, I had to fix the world, I had to help people change, to just a mosaic life where the pieces of a mosaic, they don't help each other, they don't fix each other, they don't teach each other, they simply come together. And in just being with each other, they absorb the energy of each other, and that energy of coming together makes all of them better, makes all of them do stuff they wouldn't normally do. But nobody's teaching somebody anything. It's just we come together and we hold each other and love each other, much like we're doing in this room. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, you say something so valuable. I think that has been something that has been on my heart recently because there is so much out there right now that, you know, that everyone is teaching and coaching and supporting and helping or trying to help. And sometimes it gets a notion where it just comes, everybody just wants to fill that void.
Yeah.
And that void that where we feel disconnected and separated from creation, creator, source. And for me, I had to also really look at that for myself, to really look at what is my intention? Like, what is that why? You know, is it just to fill something? And there was a big shift in my career with that as well, where I could exactly see the shift of the moment when I was only looking for the love in the audience eyes that I didn't have for myself.
Wow.
Then at some point, really now, it's not about that anymore. It's just really about expressing all of what you and I right now talk about, express what I witness in the world, express that through song and just release those songs, release them into the world like babies. You know, they're all my children. And then see who is, you know, and I love it when some people take it and be like, oh my God, I love this so much, you know, but it's not anymore like, oh, I have to write this to help someone, or I have to, or to feel loved, or to become famous, or to write a hit. It's really more about just releasing something that is in there that wants to be expressed. Yeah, that needs to.
I love that so much. I, audience, do you feel it like I feel it? Do you feel how contagious Lucie is without trying even to do anything? Do you feel how powerful and beautiful her energy is and how you just want to be around her because of the enthusiasm for life that she has? Do you feel how she doesn't need to, she could be reading from the phone book and you would still feel the same desire because of who she is and how she shows up in the world? Do you feel that? I mean, I certainly feel it, and I want to just encourage you just to continue with what you're doing because what you're doing is so beautiful. Let let's change it up if it's okay with you a little bit.
Yeah.
What makes you happy?
Ah, the ocean makes me happy. Um, my dog makes me very happy, and just like I don't know, nature in general. Just it just makes me happy. I love clouds flying by. I love the wind and the trees. Um, and a really good oat milk mocha makes me happy too.
Okay. Okay, you've already answered a couple of my questions for the lightning round, but I think that's okay. Um, if money weren't important, what would you do?
Exactly what I do, and that is so exciting. You know, that's like because I love that question so much because I asked myself that question for a long time,
Wow.
and and now I'm really able to answer. Like, you know, there was always a little bit of a time when I did all these jobs, right? I always said I was a nanny and I was an Uber driver and I was a house cleaner, and it was all just to live that dream of an artist. But I was also very much stuck in that starving artist mentality. There was almost
Yes.
a little bit something addictive about it because it had this like edge. You know, my life, I was living on the edge. Like I was living in a car. I was like for a while homeless. Like it was just like, it had this like, there was just something juicy about it because from there a lot of creativity came.
Totally.
But then, you know, I really also realized, well, if money would not be an issue, I would exactly do what I do. I would play music. I would, you know, if you would see me, like I'm here on Zoom, I'm the same way when I go to Whole Foods shopping. I talk to
Right.
people, I talk to strangers, I sing to vegetables. You know, sometimes I dance through the vegetable aisles and make up a musical just for fun to make people, you know, laugh and have beautiful conversations. And I just love it so much. I always say, people ask me, how did you always feel in Hawaii? The music theater world is not really working so well. How did you fill your shows? And I was like, just by going to Whole Foods and talking to strangers and inviting them to come, you know. Yeah, I think that sums it about up, you know. It's that,
Yeah.
yeah.
I, and I want also again the audience just to bring you into the conversation because listen to the joy that comes from living a life of doing exactly what you know you're here to do. It's more than just what you want to do. It's that you've been called to do, chosen to do, and you're honored to live that life, whether money's there or not. If I could dive into one moment, if possible,
Mhm.
because I'm sure there's so many people that are listening here that are on the edge that you spoke about before. That edge where it's almost romantic, it's almost creative, it's almost passionate and the artist's way to create stories from the adversity that we go through in our life. And to do that, was there something that happened in a moment that changed you from having to live in your car to not having to live that life? Like, how did you cross that place where you didn't have to be poor, where you didn't have to be starving, where you didn't have to be the story that you wrote about in every song that you wrote?
You know, it's a very beautiful question because it was actually, in this case, it was not just one moment like that. It was actually a journey, but it was a very powerful journey of, I met another beautiful creature who also bought into the idea of being a starving artist. She's a now 66-year-old Jew from Brooklyn And we
Wow.
always make jokes. I'm the, I could be her daughter. I'm the tall German. She's the short Jew. We always, we just laugh about it. And we met. It's a very mystical, beautiful story. She wrote a book about fairies years ago, and it became a bestseller in Europe. And my mother happened to give me that book as a gift when I was 21. And the book is a
Wow.
big reason of me being in the US. And through a guided divine intervention, I met her here in Honolulu. And the first date she showed me the book, and we looked at each other and we said, we have to do something. And we went on a journey to write a full-length Broadway musical about money.
Wow.
And we did that. We pretended we have $1 million budget. And then when the musical was done after 18 months, we realized it needs a lot of money to put this musical on. So we decided, screw that, we're gonna rewrite the whole show and make it into a two-woman show about us trying to write a musical about money. So it became that whole thing. And
Love it.
so that is the framework of what I'm about to say about this, because that was 2012. And now over the last, oh my God, is that 8 years now? Yeah.
Yes.
Over the last 8 years, that was the journey. We performed the show, and the quote of the show is from the beautiful 13th century poet called Rumi. And he says, we are all, we're wandering from room to room, hunting for the diamond necklace that is already around our neck.
I love that.
And that is what the whole show is centered around. And only about after 4 or 5 years into it, did we realize the show is not about money. The show is about self-worth. The show is about realizing that my inherent value as a human is independent of the money that I have in the bank, is independent of the house I have and all of, the possessions. They can all be so deceiving. But it was a romantic idea. It was great to write about it and sing about it and tap dance about it. But there came this shift. And again, it only happened about this year. Last year, this year, where I had that shift, and where I was courageous enough to look at, to really own it, also to be courageous enough to say, wow, I really held on to that dramatic life also, because I felt like all the miracles that happened to me, all the grace, I had connected it to that. I thought I only experience these miracles because I'm on the edge. Like if I would start making money, I wouldn't experience these miracles anymore. I wouldn't meet these kind people anymore. It's only because I'm starving and poor.
Yeah.
So that was a big shift, about a gradual shift.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And again, I want to highlight, and I'm sorry to keep bringing the audience in, but they're here with us.
Oh, I love that.
And so I want to ask you, audience, what belief systems do you hold on to? Because if you thought you gave them up, you wouldn't have the magic and the mystery and the majesty that you feel comes as a result of those. And does it really come as a result of those that way of life, or would it come to you maybe even more and more abundantly by thinking something else? Or would it disappear if you gave up your lifestyle? Would that disappear? Very beautiful questions for you all to think about, for us all to think about. And I just love this woman Lucie already, and I just want to get to know more about her. So let me just continue if I can, and just ask you, what are you scared of?
What am I scared of? That's interesting. I think a lot of what immediately comes up, a lot of times I am actually still a little scared of my own chutzpah, of my own courage, of my own, I think there's still, I think I only scratched the surface, and that scares me. Because I feel like there's already, I can feel like a powerful essence that I already have now, but I also know I only scratched the surface, and that scares me.
What do you think would happen if you allowed the scratch to become the ocean?
Um, Sometimes I feel there's a fear of loss in there. There's a fear of losing the comfort that I have now. Like
Yeah.
changing that. I don't know. There's just an element of losing friendships. Oh my God, my partnership might change, or it's like, is it safe to really like to full force shine?
Wow. Beautiful. How beautifully honest, though. And again, I just want to highlight to people listening, Lucie and I met 3 minutes before we came on air.
Yeah.
Like, this is a conversation you would think you would have with a friend you've known for years.
Mm.
But I just want to compliment Lucie and just highlight to you how open and honest and real she's being in this conversation with an imperfect stranger like myself. So I want to thank you for that and being so open and vulnerable. Let's change it up and make it a little fun for a few seconds, and then we'll go back a little bit, okay? I think you've already answered this. It's sort of my lightning round, which I suck at. I'm not good at lightning rounds because I'm too curious. And I think I already know the answer, but are you a dog person or a cat person?
I'm a dog person.
Yeah. You,
Yeah, I
you
mean, I
told me
love
you had
cats, but I'm allergic. So, and I think there's a good reason for it, because I sometimes feel like if I wouldn't be allergic, I would probably have 10 cats, because I think they're just cool animals. But my doggy, I mean, he's just the best.
Yeah. How about coffee or tea?
I love both, but there is just something, like I said earlier, like I make my own, like one espresso with some frothed oat milk and a little bit of maple syrup. And
Wow.
I'm telling you, that's one of the reasons why I'm jumping out of bed in the morning, is because I'm looking forward to it.
I love that. I'm going to have to try that drink. Um, I'm not necessarily talking about political values, but it could be political also.
Mhm.
Would you consider yourself conservative in the way you are in life or liberal?
I'm very liberal.
Yeah.
That's how I would consider myself, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I assume. And shy or outgoing?
Both, interestingly enough. So I think I have a moment of shyness, but once I overcome it, um, I'm literally out there,
Yeah.
and that's interesting. And I think it has to do with that little trust moment. I just have to kind of observe. Okay, let's do it, and then I'm totally outgoing.
If you don't mind, dive into that a little bit because there are so many people that are shy
Yeah.
that have an outgoingness that lives inside of them, but they're too shy. What
Yeah.
is that trust? What is that trust moment that you feel? Is there a way you can explain that?
For me, it's always like, it's a little bit like that. I believe everyone has a song trapped inside of them and it really wants to be sung, or like everyone has this voice, but it's kind of like a beautiful bird in a cage and it really wants to be set free, right? And for me, it's just that moment of almost understanding, like not even understand, you cannot really understand it from the head. It's just more of a like, just do it anyway. There is this just like this thing that I had my whole life, like even if I was shy or scared, but there is an element in me that's like, this is your life. This is now. This is all you got. Like, just do it and then see. Because many times when I talked myself out of things because of my shyness, or but then we don't know. We only know if we try. Like, I'm a big fan of learning by doing, and that's why also failure doesn't exist for me anymore. I'm like, failure, that's an illusion. It's like, I really only fail myself if I'm not doing it, if I'm not trying it,
Yeah,
if
I
I'm not
love that.
giving it a try.
So is it shyness that prevents you or is it fear that prevents
Uh,
you? Because,
I think it's actually fear. It's
yeah,
actually fear. Yeah, thank you for that, because it's not really shyness. I don't really think I am shy, actually. I think
yeah,
there's an element of fear.
Yeah, which every single person in the world has.
Yeah. The fear of
And so,
being punished for being too loud, too much, too out there, being unrealistic, being naive. Like there is just an element of that fear of really just speaking it up.
have you been punished for those things growing up as a kid?
Not, I mean, it started in school, not so much at home. Like my parents are beautiful hippies. I love them so much. And they were always very much like, you know, they gave me a lot of freedom. So I actually had to sometimes find my own boundaries in a way. And then when I was in school, that was the whole thing from the beginning on. It was always just, I was always too much. I was just too much for the people, for the teachers.
Yeah, yeah,
Took me a while to let that go.
yeah. I bet because, and there's so many of us that feel like we are too much if we would just come out, and so we hide and we build walls around ourselves so that we give a little bit of ourselves, but not too much because we know we're too much. And yet, what would too much bring to the world if it could bring to the world? What would too much? What would the too much of you bring to the world that's still not coming out? If it's still not coming out.
Make the world more complete. You know, I recently had this epiphany. I was like, oh my God, I feel too much and not enough at the same time. How is that even possible? You know, and many of us do, right? If I
Yeah,
would
100%.
now, it's so ironic. It's like, okay, on the one hand, you feel like you're too much, but then not enough. That doesn't make any sense just from a
No.
logical point of view, you know?
And so, just like I would like to throw this over the net, because when I hear you say that, it resonates so much with me and with other people that I know. And it's the beauty of our mind that is exquisite, that catches us both ways, never really being true. It's almost, and I'll get in trouble for this, but it's sort of what I believe, that it's almost like listening to Donald Trump. He says the same thing over and over again. It's not true, but he says it so many times that you start to believe it's true. And the mind says the same thing over and over again. You're not enough, or you're too much, or you're not enough, or you're too much. And we start to believe it's true both ways. And then we're stuck in this little tiny place where maybe we're okay here. We don't try to be more. We don't try to do more. And we can't do more because we're too much.
Yeah. It's very funny. I just, it was really a profound summer. And in August was my birthday. And shortly before my birthday,
Happy birthday.
thank you. Like, there was some notion. I wrote a song this year I wrote it a year before, but I think I was not ready back then to really hear that song and to put it out there. And the song is called Yes, I Can. And it's basically what it says is, yes, I can. Now I say, yes, I can. Now I say, here I am. No more hiding in darkness. I'm ready to stand in the light. Right? That is the quote. And I started in my whole life going live on Facebook everywhere and creating really kind of like a little bit of a buzz and a following. I started singing that song to people. And then I was like, I'm ready. And I see that so many people are ready for this. We are all ready. And so I put out, just for fun, I said, okay, everybody become co-producers, you know, I'm going to do a GoFundMe for my birthday and you can all chip in and then I'm going to go into the studio. And I did that and it worked out. Like, it was in 5 days, the money was there. And I went into the studio here in Hawaii last week. And I was able to record the song with a really amazing producer, right? And there was just something, I'm telling you, that went from, there was a little bit of an element, oh, I can't. You know, like the world so many times tells you, I can't. Or we're in the middle of a pandemic. You can't do that. You can't. Oh, nobody has money. You can't. You can't. And there was just something in me that was like, yes, I can. You know, and specifically with this song. And so what I realized is that creating that, it's almost like, I don't know, like I set a new standard for myself, and to be more in that, like, yes, I can, because this is it. This is my time here on this planet. And so I feel like it's almost my duty to share my too much and my life.
Yes.
and to
Love it.
finally stay there, because only then is this world whole. Like you said, like when the one mosaic piece is not really, positioned fully, and then it's not reflecting the full sunlight.
Yes.
And I think it's so powerful, to have that and to see myself as that piece of the big mosaic humanity.
I love it. I'm going to ask something that I never ask on the show, but I'm going to ask Lucie to put the link to where people can purchase that song. And I'm going
Oh,
to ask everybody who's listening to purchase that song as part of what we do for the family of people that we do. What more beautiful thing could happen that if two people who are strangers come into a room and have a conversation and feel each other, and strangers listening to them support each other and support them in the work that they're doing? Why not? How beautiful is that? Right? So please include that link when you send me your other links as well.
I
So
will.
that,
It will take a moment until it's released, but I will let you for sure know that we can
okay,
put it
perfect,
there.
perfect, perfect.
It's a gift
Um,
from me to the world, the song. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Have you felt like you've always fit into the world, or have you always felt a little bit different?
I always felt like a little bit out there, like not quite from here. And yeah, always a little off, but was lucky, very lucky that I met other people who felt the same. So then I always found my pods of strangers,
I love it because, first of all, the data that I'm acquiring data from the answers that people are giving me because I'm talking to hundreds of people. And one of the places I was most surprised in was the answer to this question. Like, I didn't think everybody would think they fit in, but I thought the majority of people would say, no, I fit into the world. I'm pretty, because that's the world, the way I perceive that people try to live their life, trying to show us that they fit in. But asked one on one, about 95% of the people have said, no, I don't fit in. I don't feel like I fit in. And it's really interesting. It shows me the brilliance of a Steve Jobs when he comes and makes Apple's motto. This is for all you crazies, for all those who don't fit in, who don't, he capitalized on that group of people
Yeah.
that felt they were different, that felt that they were not, and what a powerful thing to capitalize in. It would be great to write a song about it, perhaps, because I think there's so many of us that feel different like that.
Yeah, it's true. And it's it's I love that, because another thing that I felt very similar to what we just said is that so many of us feel like we're always giving. We're giving more than we're receiving. That's about the
Yeah.
same. If you ask 95% of the people, have the
Yes.
feeling they give more than they receive. But what dawned on me, Daniel, is I was like, but wait a minute. If everybody's giving, nobody is receiving. Where does it all go? So I feel, where does it all go when everybody feels like they're giving? Are we really actually giving, or are we just not open to receiving? And that's what really brings me to my juiciness. Another juiciness of this year was, I'm like, oh my God, it's just about the being open to receiving, like being
Yeah.
open to receiving abundance, being open to receiving love. Also, the receiving the love of a stranger, receiving your graciousness with me here, and not to just let it like flutter by, and
Yeah.
to really be like, oh, can I have the courage to open that heart to the gift of someone else?
Yeah. It's, I love what you're saying. And it's one of the reasons why I want to create a revolution of listening, because I really believe that listening is the process of receiving.
Mm.
When we really listen to somebody, we receive them into our life. And I find one of my questions that I normally ask, but you're too intuitive, you're leading ahead of it, is do you give more than you receive, or receive more than you give? And what I really think happens is very little do people receive. Very often they take, but they don't receive.
Oh, I love that.
So there's takers and there's receivers, and I think the world is really short on receiving. And if you think about energy from an energy point of view, if we give but don't receive, then the energy stops.
Yeah.
But if we give and receive, it just continues to go, and it continues to build momentum, and we continue to grow something. Why do you think people have a hard time receiving?
I feel like, again, ties for me personally, what I see is that a lot of people feel unworthy, because that has been the framework of a lot of work that I do, with women that just come out of prison. With that show, we had very much to do with that. And what it always comes down to is that I'm not sure if I'm really worthy to have this. I'm not sure if I'm worthy to be loved. I'm not sure. And that was really, that's this feeling of deserving to receive a gift, right? And so many times we even then push it away, right? Oh no, I can't take that. I can't receive that, And I think once we have an awareness to really be aware that the person who gives really also needs a receiver, because otherwise the giving is also no fun, right? We need a receiver.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like it seems to be tied very much to that, like we just earlier said, no, I'm not good enough. I'm not good. I'm not, I'm not worthy.
I want the listener to pause this podcast right now. And I want you either to sit in your own quiet or get out a journal. And I want you to write about what Lucie just said. I want you to think about, I want you to feel what Lucie just said. Do you feel not good enough to receive? Do you feel that there are things that if you would open up and be able to receive would completely change the way you live your life? Do you feel that money is all around you but you're just not willing to receive it? Do you feel like the love of your life is standing right in front of you but you just don't receive it? Do you feel like the perfect opportunity for you to show your worth and your value in this world is right around the corner, but you're not ready to take it? Do you receive that perfect health is yours if you would only just open yourself up and just allow it to happen? We live in a world where we think that this is what is, but energy is what is. And if we were the masters of this universe and we wanted to give something to someone who didn't want to receive it, we would be gracious and not give it to them. But if they wanted to receive it, we might give them more than they could ever imagine possible. So what's holding you back right now from receiving all that wants to be given to you? Hopefully by now you've turned your podcast back on. Surest way to lose an audience. I'm teasing.
They're like journaling for 3 days. We're all like,
That's right. Whenever you come back, you come back. If you come back, if you don't come back, you got a lot already from the show, so that's fine too.
Yeah, but I think it's very potent. These are the questions to ask ourselves because, there's a notion in me that sometimes feels like, and maybe even beyond that worthiness, it all goes back to that moment where we got separated from what you earlier described as that heaven on earth, or that peaceful place, that oneness with God, source, all the names that we have given to that place of knowing that we are all definitely connected and that we are, like you said, that we are energy. And once we start really perceiving that, and again, I think when we can receive the idea that everything is energy, when we are willing to receive just the idea first, plant the idea in our heart space, water it a little bit, and then let that tree, I always call it my tree of worthiness, let that grow, and then really have that idea of, wow, if that's really the truth, then you can go out and play, because then you can literally, then money is energy, love is energy, then everything is a frequency, and you can go with your resonance, what you're resonating with.
Yes. Beautiful. How is it possible that we haven't known each other before? Right? I mean, look at how much resonance there is, and I don't even know where you popped up from. But I'm sure happy you're here now. So
yeah. Thank you. What a blessing.
Absolutely. What are you most excited about?
I think right now I'm really excited about that I'm just kind of like stepping out right now. I'm excited that I'm right here, that I just said, you know what, just gotta sign up, let's do it. Like literally, I'm very excited that my playfulness is absolutely reawakened, specifically in this time right now, to just play anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. And what are you most hopeful for?
Ah, I'm really hopeful for that this period of time, that this pandemic, that Mr. COVID, that it's really a teaching for us. And if we are willing to receive it as such, that we can remember who we are and that we can really reconnect with that tree of worthiness, and that we can really take this as an opportunity to pause and to reinvent. I'm very hopeful for reinvention of humanity. I'm very hopeful. I'm believing in the dreamers and the visionaries of this time, that we envision so big and so strongly a new form of economy, a new world where everyone is taken care of, where everyone is finally treated equally. And I feel like it's such a pivotal time, but I have so much hope for that, that if those of us who are called upon being those dreamers, that we keep dream weaving and connecting and creating that new place for all of us where we can thrive and where we can all be too much together.
Boy, how beautiful. Again, stop, rewind, playback. Because how beautiful that is. I'm so touched by not only how much we resonate in what we feel, but through the passion in which you say it and how beautiful it is. And for those dreamers out there, dream weave. Let's do it. Let's connect more. Let's not be scared. Let's not hold back. Let's just get involved. Can you hear how many times in our conversation we've said the word receive? And how important receiving is in a world where we're full of givers.
Mm.
And sometimes givers have the hardest time receiving. Why do you think that is? Is it because of vulnerability and they don't feel worthy enough? Or is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that's part of it, but just that image, like when I'm constantly giving, it's almost like a bypassing too, right? Because it's almost that when I receive something, it triggers something. And I need to then really look at that, what gets triggered, right? And that might be different for everyone. Someone might not feel worthy. Someone might feel, maybe someone felt always invisible, but now they get something. And that would kind of like counter that, right? It's like, oh, wait a minute. How can that be? I never was loved. I can't take this because my whole construct of not being good enough and not being seen will fall apart. I think there's a lot also about we are holding on to certain ideas and identity constructions that we have about ourselves. Yeah. I really believe it's time to release those.
I love that. One of the beautiful things about the Mosaic to me is that it says that the way we see the world is exactly that, the way we see the world. It is not the way the world is.
Yeah.
And what would happen if we let go of the way we see the world for just a few moments? Mm. It's always going to be there for us to bring it back. But how about if we just try right now with everybody listening to this, that we let go of our belief of how the world is, our belief of how we need to be, and we just allow a fresh new energy to come in and lift that from us. Lift that. Give us whatever it is that it wants to give us. It leans to me on the word trust. Yeah. And you have your hand over your heart and you're swaying, and I feel your music in you. How easy is it for you to trust?
It is actually, I'm very fortunate that it is, when I get a little bit out of alignment, I go very quickly back into that trust. And the way I do it is actually exactly usually this way. I put my hand on my heart and I kind of close my eyes and I I go to that inside world, and what I use is really my childlike imagination. And I feel when I look around, I feel we are all really children. And that's why we are also called the children of the world. And there's just this one point in our lives where we get told, now it's enough, you got to grow up. And now you get married, you have children, you have a house and a car and this and that, right? And so then you grow up and you have a loan and mortgages and all of that. And we're all still pretty overwhelmed with all of it. And then, though, if we could just go back in there and connect with that imagination, that playfulness, I feel like that's what brings me back into trust, is that I find a notion of creativity, play in my tasks in front of me, in my world of tasks.
I love that. And again, I'm going to just invite the listener. What brings you back to trust? Do you know what brings you back to trust? Is it trust something that's easy for you to do, or has it become too hard for you to do that you don't even do it anymore? And how do you get it back? Do you even want it back? Those are some of the things that we want to just allow this moment to give us. Lucie, I know both of these things that I'm going to say to you are super important, but I want to know in this moment which you feel is more important for you. Is it more important for you to have a platform where you can stand up and share your voice with people? Or is it more important for you to create a platform where other people can share their voice and be heard by you?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think for me right now, personally, the calling is the number one.
Yeah.
That is just what I feel. That is what I'm here right now to do, is creating that platform where these children of songs can be released into the world. And that might shift and change at some point, but right now that's it. Yeah.
Thank you for having the courage to say that, because I think sometimes people feel it's too selfish or something to say that, and they say the opposite. But the whole reason I created this show was to give people a chance to speak the truth that they have within inside them.
And I could see an element in me that felt that way. I could see. I was like, no.
I could too. That's why I'm highlighting it for you.
Yeah,
and highlighting it for the audience, because I could feel it. And,
right now,
and you powered through it. I mean, you just went to the truth. You have 2 minutes now. If you knew the world was listening to you, what is it you'd want to say to them? This is your voice.
I would just invite everyone to close their eyes for a moment and put their hands on their heart space and just go in receiving mode for a very tiny moment and just listen. I am worthy. I am worthy now. We are worthy. We are worthy now. I am worthy. I am worthy now. And I'm inviting everyone just for a moment to tap into that energy of the inner child, to go there and take that inner child by the hand, or look your inner child in the eye and say, you are worthy. You are worthy. You are worthy now. It's safe to be open to receive. We are opening. We are opening to receive. Just invite inviting you to take that with you and to remember that beautiful seed of worthiness that we planted here together in this beautiful gathering, and that it's, you know, up to each one of us to take care of the soil for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us and for all you've shared. Do you believe that the world around us speaks to us? Do you believe our businesses speak to us? Do you believe our environment speaks to us? Do you believe our bodies speaks to us?
Yeah, everything speaks to us.
What do you think the world is trying to say to us right now?
The world is, there's different things, but the first thing that comes out is, please, like there's this element of love yourselves, see yourselves, and then share that with the world. So love yourself so that you can love me again, that you can see me again, that you see our connection. Yeah, I see that in every tree that I walk by, and in the ocean and the animals. Like, if you would just know how powerful and beautiful you are, you wouldn't have to throw all these tantrums.
Yes, yes. Yeah. I love that. Lucie, I want to thank you so much for sharing of yourself so fully. I mean, you just walked into the room and were here and so present. And you weren't too much. You were beautifully you. And I just want to thank you so much for showing up the way you did. And for those of you who listen to the show regularly, and this is a beautiful show, I want you to, if you liked it, to share what you like with people you like. So share this with your friends. We're going to have Lucie's contact information in the show notes, so you'll be able to get in touch with her. You'll be able to, we'll highlight it when her song becomes public, and we'll invite people to support her in that as a community. And what I want to ask all of you to do is what I ask at the end of every show. Take a few minutes and go up to someone you don't know and just ask them how they're doing. You don't need to try and fix them or change them or help them or feel sorry for them or lift something up from them, but just hold them. Hold them with your love. Hold them in your love. Hold them with your heart. Give them your love. And just be there for them, for whatever comes through them that they want to share with you in that moment. When the world is full of strangers, the world is a strange place. But when the world's full of friends, the world's a friendly place. And how long did it take? I mean, we've been talking for close to an hour, but it didn't take 3 minutes for us to feel we were friends already.
Exactly.
And we were strangers before we walked into this room. So if it can happen here, it can happen with you. There's no special talent either one of us have, except the ability to show up and be ourselves with each other in this moment. I invite all of you to do that, because if each one of us does it, guess what? The world turns into a friendlier place than it was before. Lucie, is there one last thing you want to say before we head out?
I'm very grateful for you for opening this place and for creating an oasis of peace in this very turbulent virtual blue. Thank you. And thank you for everyone who was chiming in today.
Yes, for me it's my honor, and for everyone I'm sure they loved every moment of this conversation. So will you share with us just the most obvious place? All your places are going to be in the show notes, but what's the most obvious way people can get in touch with you?
So very easy is Facebook for me. That's a very good medium to find me. Lucie Lynch, LucieLynch, or lucielynchmusic.com.
Perfect. And get in touch with her. I mean, this is a beautiful, beautiful human being. So figure out if you have something coming up that you need something, if you're doing a virtual event that you need some upliftment for, get in touch with her, please. It would be my honor to introduce you to a person that I just met who I already love. So, again, thank you everybody for coming. Lucie, thank you for your time. Thank you to those who listens. And God bless you all. Until the next stranger comes into the room, make today the moment you go from stranger to friend with somebody.
Yeah.
Be friends. Okay? Until later, God bless.